Okay, so we've unpacked the printer from the shipper box and we've mounted it onto the floor stand that we created earlier or assembled earlier, and now we're going to commission this printer up ready and get ink in it and get it ready for mounting into production line. So a couple of things out of the box. It came wrapped in some saran film, so obviously unwrap it. The print head comes protected also in saran with a sleeve, so it protects the print head. And the new power cords are wired directly into the unit, so there's no plug here now, but you will need a pair of cutters for the cable tie that's holding it in place. So we'll cut this like this. And a couple of things just to keep in mind here. We're going to be using an extension cable, so just make sure that the extension cable is grounded. It does make a huge difference to the printer. It's very critical in operation, as we are using negative charge in the print head. So a good ground is critical for good printing success. So I've got my extension cable here. I'm not going to plug it in just yet because there's a few things that we need to do prior to plugging it in. So let's turn the printer around and see what we can do to get it commissioned up. So this is the back of the printer, and you'll see that the back cover just slides off. There's a little locking screw at the bottom there. So quick visual inspection before we move forward. Just make sure that the thing didn't damage in transit. Everything looks good to me here. So before we make a start on commissioning the printer, in the box there is a guide, a commissioning guide that gives a detailed step-by-step procedure with photographs and description of how to commission the printer. So very important, follow this guide step by step and you won't go wrong. So I'm going to be using this guide today to do this little tutorial on how to commission the Bestcode Series 8 inkjet printer. So the first step one, we're going to be locating these two pipes and connecting them to the pump. The reason that we unplug these is when we ship the printer, we flush the whole system out, including the pump. So we try and keep everything sealed with the plugs so that it doesn't dry out and doesn't cause pump failure when you come to commission it. So we have here a red and a black. And I find the easiest way to get at all of this in here, my hands are too big and I cannot get this pipe around and plugged into the receiver on the pump. So what I find is easiest is to take off the filler cap by removing these 3 screws right here on the top. Careful not to lose these screws. Just put the print head down. And when you took out these screws, this whole assembly just unplugs directly from the tank, and we can leave that on the front there. And now you can see we have a lot more access to get at all these tubes. So the fitting is a quick release fitting, both the red and the black on the pump, and there's a little black circular disc there that you push in with your finger, and then the whole thing unplugs like that. Put that one there, and then do the same to the black one, and just pull that out. There may be a little bit of ink residue on this one. So one at a time now, we're going to take the black one first. I'm going to take this cap off, and then I'm going to push this into the back fitting. Make sure you hear that click. And then the red one, We're going to take the red cap off and also push that into the fitting. Make sure you hear the click. Like that. So once we've gone ahead and we've made sure all of these tubes are in place, we've gone through all of the other ones and made sure there's nothing loose or out of place or damaged in transit. Sometimes this diaphragm gets moved out of place. That's all good. The filters are all good. This is all secure. Everything's in and secure. We can go ahead and take the Smart Fill cup now and put this back into place very carefully. And little tip, trying to get this tube into the rubber seal sometimes can be difficult. The trick is if you get some makeup and spray it around the bottom here, it will slide in without any problems at all. This one actually is going in pretty easy. And then we can just align this up and get the screws and tighten this back in and screw it into place. There we go. Second. Third. All right, with that in place, don't over tighten it. With that in place, we can put the cap back on, make sure all this is in place and good. And now we're ready for the next step. So now we've gone ahead and fitted the two tubes onto the pump, the black and the red, onto the pump there. Now we can go ahead and turn the machine around. We can plug it in. Again, remembering to use that grounded extension cable if you're going to use an extension cable. Plug it in and turn it on. And what we're going to do when we first turn it on, it's going to come up and it's going to say ink fault. Ink fluid level empty, action required, add Smart Fill ink. Of course it is, because there's no ink in the printer. That's going to be our next step after we've checked the solenoids. So one of the things you can check down here is that you're running the latest version of firmware. Currently this is 104.07.06, but read the bulletins, find out what the latest firmware is, make sure everything's up to date. Now's a good time to do that. So just acknowledge the ink fault and then the makeup fault as well, and you'll come back to this screen. Those warnings will come back up later on, but for now what we're going to do is we're going to check, before we put ink in it, we're going to check and make sure that the solenoids are all working. Nothing worse than putting ink in and then finding out you've got a solenoid stuck. So we're going to go into from the home screen, we're going to go into service. And then we're going to go into fluidic. And again, this is following the step-by-step commissioning document that was shipped with your printer. So now you can see this screen and you'll see all of the different solenoid valves labeled here, and next to them are the red buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and press each one in turn. And what I'm looking for when I press them, I'm actually listening for a click of the solenoid clicking. So if we do the flush, you can hear that nice click. We're going to go down to the gutter. And then the tank makeup, all clicking very well. And then the print head. Now the print head's going to be in the actual print head itself. And I can hear that one. And then the bleed valve, all working good. Now the viscometer, again good. And then the add makeup valve. And again, good clicking from each one of those. So that's tested each of the solenoids. Now we can go ahead and start to put in the inks. So now that we've gone ahead and done the pre-fluid test with checking all of the solenoid valves, making sure that we heard a click on each one of those valves, we're ready to move on to the next section, which is commissioning the ink type. So once we've commissioned the ink type, we can then add the ink and makeup. So when we first power on, we're going to see both an ink fault and makeup fault, as described earlier. It's basically telling us that the ink fluid level is empty and that we need to add ink. But before we can do that, we have to go ahead and commission the ink type for the printer. So we're going to go ahead and just confirm these two for makeup and ink, and it will bring us back into the home screen. Now, to go ahead and commission the ink type, we're going to go into, actually, first of all, we're going to sign in. And again, the password here is GOTECH, G-O-T-E-C-H, and hit enter. And then we're going to go into service, and then into tools, and then into technician down here. And you'll see another menu here, Smart Fill. So we're going to click that. And now we've got the commission type and then the ink type. Right now it's set up to 5100101. I want to go ahead and add in a different ink. And the ink that I'm putting in is 51-0081-01. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll through these buttons until I see the 51-081. Still going through. We're up to 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. There you go. We just went past it right there. 081. This is a fast dry black ink. So you can see the ink is a 51-0081 and the makeup is 52-0081. So we're going to go ahead now and just press this button here, which says commission system. Right now it's red. When I click it, it turns green. And now the machine is commissioned to this ink type. And whatever ink I put in, it's going to compare the ink type that's commissioned to what we're putting in. If it's the wrong ink, it will tell us we're putting in the wrong ink. So now we've gone ahead and done that. I'm going to go into the home position. So now we're ready to go ahead and fill the ink and makeup into the printer. We have a white lid and a black lid. The white lid matches the clear bottle of makeup and the black lid matches the black bottle of ink. You can't actually physically get them in the wrong way around as the neck is a different size. So take off the lid of the makeup, and what we're going to do is we're going to match the symbol on the label here with the symbol on top of the printer. This is an RFID tag, stores the information about the printer. When we put this bottle in first to do this, we're going to leave this cap on. So we just lay the bottle in, and we can go ahead then, and the corresponding button, it says makeup empty. Let me just clear that. It says makeup empty. The button corresponds to the makeup, and then the ink empty corresponds to the ink. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the makeup empty button, and what this will do is it will check the ink, and it will come up with a success. It says that it's a makeup fast dry black and it's 52-0081-01. So now I've gone ahead and confirmed that. I can now take the cap off the bottle. Each bottle has a nice little foil sealed membrane on it. And inside the cup, you'll see that there is a septum in there. So literally all you're doing now is pushing this bottle in, and you'll hear it click, and it will start draining down inside into the reservoir, into the makeup reservoir of the printer. It takes around about 20 seconds, 30 seconds to drain into the printer. You'll hear it start gurgling, and you'll also see this level here. Instead of saying makeup low, it will say makeup okay. So I'm going to confirm that one. We're almost done. Don't rush this. Don't be tempted to take the bottle out before it's filled. Otherwise it will splash. So we can go ahead now. It's stopped the filling. I can take this out, I can tap this, I can go ahead and put the cap back on the bottle, and we can dispose of this. Put the lid back onto the smart fill cup. And now you can see it says makeup good. So I'm going to do the same now with the ink. This is the Fast Dry 510081-01 black ink. As you can see, it's a slightly larger cap on it. I'm going to take the black lid off. I'm going to go ahead and align the label here with the label symbol on the machine. And I'm going to go ahead now and press the ink empty button right here. It's checking the tag. It's come up with success. Confirm 51008101 Fast Dry Black. Confirm that. I'm going to go ahead now and take the cap off the bottle. Again, the foil on the bottom is sealed. Septum, I'm going to push down, and this now is filling the ink into the ink tank. Same sort of time, between 20 and 30 seconds. And you'll see this come up. It's saying ink empty right now, but it will change to ink okay or ink good. Just finishing off now. So when you take this one out, there will be a little bit of a drip. Go ahead and put the cap right on it and dispose of the bottle. Put the cap back on the smart fill cup. And now it's just changed to ink full. So we're ready now to actually go ahead and start up the printer and load all of the ink into the filter, the pre-pump filter, into the pump, into the main filter, through all the solenoids, and through into the print head. So we'll go ahead and start that process now. Okay, so the next part is first time jet start. I've gone ahead and removed the bracket here. I put the print head into the cleaning station, as it says here, print head clean station. I'm in the home screen, and it says disable the high voltage and phase. And to do that, we're going to hit the service key. And then on the right-hand side, you see the two green buttons for high voltage deflect and phasing enabled. So I'm just going to hit both of those and make them red. Now, I'm going to do something slightly different here. It says in the book that press the start button to start the jet. I typically don't do this purely because when you hit the start button, it straight away, it puts 40 PSI into the system. You've only just connected the tubes in, and it may be that the tubes aren't plugged in correctly, and there might, 40 PSI might blow a tube, or it might create a leak, creating a mess. So what I do typically, instead of doing this, I would go back into the home button, and I would go into service and then fluidic. And at the top here, we have a manual pump start. So what I would do is manually start the pump, putting in around about 6 presses. So that will be 6 RPS, and it takes a while for it to take action. But after a little bit, you will see it will come up 6 RPS, and then the PSI would be around about 4 or 5 PSI. You can see we're now 7 RPS, 4 PSI. And what this is going to do is slowly put ink in the system, fill up the filter, that 10,000 hour filter, or whichever filter module you have in there, pull ink from the tank. It would load it through, going through all of the different, like the Venturi, the viscometer, but it will slowly fill this up. So it gives you a chance to have a look in the back, open the back up, have a look, make sure there's no leaks, make sure that you can follow the ink around, and it's going everywhere that it should. The other reason is that it eliminates any risk of trapped air in the machine when you do it slowly. So I would leave this on for a little while, 5 or 10 minutes, let it fill everything up, get everything done. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and hit the stop button. So now we've run the slow pressure startup, we can go ahead now and hit the start button with full 40 psi pressure, knowing that we're not going to create any messes inside the printer with tubes coming off or leaks. So we're going to go ahead with still with the high voltage disabled, errors off, and the phasing disabled, still off. I'm going to go ahead and hit the green button at the top here. It says start, and you'll hear the jet start up and start its cycling, starting in 31 seconds. You'll hear straight away the jet start up, the vacuum on the return gutter. We can do a little visual inspection to make sure that everything's running good and the jet is running indeed into the gutter, and that it hasn't splattered everywhere onto the print head here. Sometimes first startup, you may get a little scab on the nozzle plate that has to go through, so it may start up messy for that first startup. So now we're up and running, and the print head looks like it's everything's running good. So now we're ready for the next step. So going back to the booklet here, we've gone ahead and done the first time jet start. On to the next page, and one of the things we have to do now is stop the jet. We've run it for probably about 5 minutes. We're going to stop the jet and then perform a back flush nozzle routine up to around about 6 times. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to stop the jet up here, and that will shut down the jet. It will shut down pretty quick. It's not going to do any back flushes while you're in the service menu. So once this has finished its cycle, we've got what, 13 seconds left. Five, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so it stopped the jet. So now with the brush now becomes blue at the top here, right next to the home screen. We're going to go ahead and hit the brush, and at the same time, we're going to squirt cleaner up into the nozzle. Right above where the green light is flashing, we're going in just up into the nozzle where the green light is flashing. And we're going to do that, that's once. We're going to do that again. So start and hit the button, get the cleaner, fire it up at the nozzle plate. So that's done the back flush. And looking onto the booklet again, dry the print head, then start the jet normally with errors and high voltage and phase enabled. So the print head will dry, give it a few minutes. That will dry out very quickly. And we're going to go ahead now, and these red buttons, we're going to go ahead and make them green. So now we have phasing enabled, the errors are on, and the high voltage deflection is also enabled. And the next part is we're actually going to start the jet again. So hit the start button, and this will start the jet up. Hear the jet in the return gutter, the vacuum. Everything looks and sounds good. So once we've started up, this will come up, and it will come up with a ready status. So now, while we're in this screen, what we're going to do, the next part is verifying the modulation. Verifying the modulation requires the printer viscosity to be within range. Now, what we've got is a target viscosity of 4.5. So what we say what we mean when we say in range is between 4 and 5, so 0.5 either side. So anywhere between 4 and 5 on the viscosity, we can then start to do our modulation calibration. So we're going to wait now, leave the printer running like this with the jet running until the viscosity becomes within range.